Thank you. We'll move to a second round. I'll recognize myself and want to pick up a little bit on the discussion on replicator with what Mr. Schimpf said, referencing mass. As I understand it, the theory behind replicator is that the PRC's advantage is mass. More ships, more missiles, more people. They can just throw a lot of this at the problem. I would add a human dimension. I think if you study sort of the history of warfare, or at least the last time we fought the communists in the Korean War, you'll understand that these regimes are less sensitive to casualties than we are in a democracy. It just tends to work that way. And so if you offered Xi Jinping a choice of you can have Taiwan, but it'll cost you your whole Navy, he might take that offer. And so we are going to use, if I get the acronyms right, All Domain Attritable Autonomous Systems, ADA2, to counter China's A2AD. So we're going to put aside the ridiculousness of the acronym there. But I understand the concept, right? But we have existing systems that would help us overcome the mass problem, right? You make long-range anti-ship missiles. It's my understanding you could make more of these long-range anti-ship missiles. Now, Mr. Schimpf might say, well, we need cooler autonomous systems that Anduril builds, but this is something we know how to build. You build it. What would you need to expand the production of LRASM and other key long-range precision fires?
Well, there's a few beneficial actions the government could take. One is to really create a long-range production and procurement strategy over, 5 to 10 years.
So multi-year appropriation.
A multi-year approach. Congress may need to adjust the ways that it allocates funding to that kind of approach so that the suppliers, as Mr. Schimpf said earlier, will have the confidence to ramp up and invest in that higher production level. So we will have confidence at our company that LRASM, long-range anti-ship missile demand will increase because we understand the threat and the mission. But our suppliers, who tend to be in the 80-20 rule, 80% of their business tends to be commercial, and 20% of it tends to be military or defense related. They're going to react to both of those markets, and if they see more certainty based on commercial airline business or other factors that have nothing to do with national defense, they'll probably put more resources in their company into that business.
Yeah.
However, the way to get surety for them and for us and our investors is to have a longer range commitment by government to a production schedule that lasts more than 1 year.
And I want Mr. Schimpf to comment, and maybe in so doing, clarify something for me. Would you be drawing on the same energetics necessary to put in these long-range precision fires? Recognize you're both making different things, but are you reliant on the same energetics subcomponents in so doing? We'll start with Schimpf, then I'll go back to you, Mr. Takeley.
One point I'll make is, actually, I'm a huge fan of LRASM, and we need more of them, and I completely agree with that. And there's a lot of other challenges that I think Replicator can solve in that, of how do you target these, how do you get them at range, and I absolutely believe we need to ramp the production of existing capabilities. And
by the way, they need to be pre-positioned in theater,
100%.
because you're not going to be able to surge them forward in the event of a conflict.
The thing I will say on the supply side is, in some cases, yes, they'll draw on similar constrained, supply pieces, but I don't think that is inherently bad, right? The answer has to be we have to increase capacity, not to, sort of hoard the existing capacity we do have.
Do you own your own energetics, or are you relying on other companies? You guys just bought something in Indiana, right?
We've invested in this from a solid rocket motor production capacity, and I won't speak for Mr. Takeley, but I believe he tried to have the ability to support this in the defense space.
Mr. Takeley, do you want to comment?
Sure. There's two aspects. One is the explosive ordnance in the front of the missile, and the second is the propulsion. They are different. We tend to rely on explosive materials from third parties, including the government, and the solid rocket motor and liquid rocket motor industry, which is again mixed to commercial but mostly defense oriented. For the propulsion. The propulsion industry is, for solid rocket motors, as you know now, is really down to two meaningful players. One of which is now owned by Northrop Grumman, the other which is being proposed to be acquired by L3 Harris. they're both in the other businesses as well. We are endeavoring, as Mr. Shrimp's company, to create another supplier. We're in late-stage negotiations with a company that can actually pull this off, we believe. And so we'll be seeking the same diversity that you're hearing about from some of the other panelists here today.
If Mr. Khanna will indulge me, I'm going a little bit over, but are you, if you pull that off, or with what you've already pulled off in Indiana, are you allowed to use advanced energetics like CL20 as opposed to HMX suite of energetics, or how does that work?
Well, we've got a full range of energetics available to us. We, as you know, Chairman, we built a Trident missile, the D3 missile, from the strategic end to the Javelin on the tactical end. So we've got access to all the energetics that are available for our products. So,
yeah, and I think there is a lot of opportunity to, China has a substantial advantage in terms of range of many of their weapons. And looking and accelerating novel energetics is, I think, absolutely one of the most strategic things that the U.S. can do. That has been a challenge. There's a lot of questions around, certification, shelf life, all these things. But there's a way to accelerate that timeline, get these fielded, and get substantial range increases to existing munitions by adoption of novel energetics. I think it is a huge opportunity for the department.
Yep. Mr. Khanna?